this might be the scariest thing I have ever seen in this game. It's Vlad, standing outside of my door in the middle of the night, with a paper bag on his head, playing with the lump of clay. I think this is what Vlad should do all the time, because this is much scarier than him randomly turning up and doing that silly little creepy walk he does into the house. Hi there, welcome to my channel, and welcome to Strangerville Mystery with Cameron Fletcher. At the start of our story, Cameron is just graduating from university with his degree in computer science. At the time that he turned up for his graduation, he spotted a mascot and decided to ask for a selfie. His time at the university hadn't been particularly exciting. He'd passed with an average grade, and asking for the selfie he got refused. This level of disappointment was a little bit in keeping with what Cameron's experience had been, but the graduation meant new beginnings and a new start, and Cameron was hopeful that he could go out into the world and find himself a job with his degree. Because as everyone knows, in the world we live in, the job market is a great place for a new graduate. As the students all headed off to their graduation ceremony, Lobster Larry found himself left alone. Standing in the costume seemed a little pointless and kind of sad, really, under the circumstances. No one there to cheer you on, ask for a selfie. Quite a strange choice of a career, really. Lobster Larry started to contemplate the meaning of life and, oh, no, he's heading off. And as quickly as it had begun, the ceremony was over. Cameron came outside and took a deep breath of the fresh air and stood alongside his fellow graduates, who all slowly began to leave. Off they went to start their new lives, leaving Cameron alone with Lobster Larry. Cameron began to contemplate what his options were, and when even Lobster Larry left, he decided he would just head home himself and start looking for an exciting job to start his exciting new life. Cameron spent the rest of the day searching various websites for jobs. Search wasn't going quite as well as he thought, because so many of them, especially those that did ask for a degree in computer science, also seemed to be looking for someone with at least 10 years of work experience, which of course he didn't have. After searching for quite some time, Cameron eventually resorted to checking forums, where he heard that there was a science lab always looking to recruit new staff, so he decided to check it out. It was in a place called Strangerville. Strangerville was a relatively small place, and the lab was right at the top. It was called the lab, which seemed a bit strange, but they were recruiting, and Cameron needed to get a job. And so he began looking for property in Strangerville to move to. The only thing within Cameron's limited budget in the area was a small trailer in a trailer park. The owner there was looking for a roommate. The owner of the trailer was called McClellan. He certainly looked like an interesting sort of person, hanging out at Magnolia Blossom in Willow Creek for some reason. And so Cameron committed and moved in with McClellan. Upon arriving in Strangerville, Cameron was greeted by a sign, "Welcome to Strangerville. The only thing stranger than the people is the flora." Soon after moving in, the town slogan is starting to make sense to you. Some of the locals are acting a bit suspicious, and there's a large number of military and scientists in town. Try asking people about Strangerville. They might be able to shed some light on this strange situation. Cameron certainly did think it was odd that the lab was called the lab, but he hoped that McClellan might be able to tell him a little bit more about that. And Strangerville wasn't the only odd thing, because, for some reason, face to face, McClellan called himself Emmett Relevart. Cameron decided that was something he would ask about later, but it was definitely something worth finding out more about. Starting to think that there were a few things he needed to learn more about, Cameron decided to make his aspiration the Strangerville Mystery aspiration. Strangerville is holding some deep, dark secret, and this sim wants to uncover why all of the townfolk are acting a bit strange. That sounded like something he could do, especially as the first few items on the aspiration included asking about Strangerville and visiting the lab, which were things that Cameron intended to do anyway. McClellan, or Emmett, or whatever he wanted to call himself, certainly seemed like a friendly chap and a good roommate, asking Cameron for a selfie and treating him like he was a celebrity as soon as he moved in. He certainly did a fantastic job of making Cameron feel very welcomed. Sometimes it seemed like McClellan's name was McClellan, and sometimes it was Emmett, and sometimes it was just nothing at all. However, McClellan, or Emmett, seemed willing to help Cameron, as he asked the pizza delivery person what she might know about Strangerville. She said, "I heard there are strange things going on at the secret lab. The scientists and military personnel around here can probably shed some light on the situation." Cameron thought it was a little odd that she called it the secret lab. Perhaps that was what that blank space in the name stood for. Perhaps it was just secret, and perhaps it had just been covered over as a little joke, because the name was secret and covering it made it seem like a secret. Cameron decided to ask her himself to see if he could find out any more information, and she told him, "The local library is known to have scientists researching the Strangerville archives. I wonder what they are looking for." That certainly sounded intriguing, and Cameron made a note to go to the library to check that out for himself. When Cameron went to head out to pay a visit to the secret lab, just to find out where it was exactly to see what his commute would be like, he discovered that, strangely enough, McClellan, or Emmett, wasn't in the list of companions he could travel with, almost like he didn't exist. It seemed like Cameron was dealing with more than one mystery in Strangerville. Upon arriving at the lab, Cameron was surprised to find it in quite a remote location. He was also surprised to find that part of the fence appeared to have been ploughed over by a vehicle leaving hurriedly, leaving its tracks in the dirt below. Seemed like an odd thing, but perhaps it was just an incident that had happened on that particular day. However, as he moved closer to the building, he noticed a strange plant growing in the ground that appeared to be glowing. He moved a little closer and decided to take a photo and inspect it to see if he could learn anything from it. Upon studying the plant, Cameron learned that it was a wild bizarre plant. It had an odd glow about it, as if it was being controlled by some other entity. It looked as though there was something growing inside of it. Cameron continued further. Even though it was late at night, he found that one of the doors to the building was actually open and he was able to enter the lab. But to his surprise, it looked a little messy inside, and some of the chairs were askew, some of the desks were empty, piles of papers poured out, archive boxes all over the floor. It looked as if the place had been ransacked, or perhaps just abandoned in a hurry. He did find what looked like a large set of controlled locked doors with a security system entry. That looked a bit more promising. He went to inspect that to see if he could learn anything more about what might have happened. Cameron discovered that the door was locked, which was perhaps not surprising. It looked as though it required a key card. Someone around town maybe knew how to get one. Before leaving, he decided to have a little poke around the secret lab to gather some more information. After all those scattered piles of paper sure did look tempting, and there was no one going around, so he didn't see any harm in having a little look just to find out a little bit more about what was happening at the lab. He might even get some clues or some heads up of how he could impress if he got an interview for a job there. Feeling a little tired and not finding anything immediately interesting, Cameron decided to take his leave. The building had quite an odd layout, lots of winding corners, and it seemed as though that secret entry was hidden quite far away from the main entrance. It was almost like something was being hidden at the secret lab. He had to wonder what that might be. Cameron made a note to return the next day when he was a bit more refreshed, and he decided that he would take backup with him. Since he couldn't take McClellan or Emmett, he would take one of his trusted friends from university. With some progress made on his aspiration, and with perhaps more questions than answers, Cameron decided to go to bed for the night and to tackle the problem again in the morning, which takes us to the end of this episode. Tune in next time as Cameron continues his journey to uncover the Strangerville mystery and maybe finally get that job. Thanks again for watching. The game has generated an imitation Emily parcel. It's not quite Emily parcel and very similar though. It's very odd. Very odd.